Stand up.
Hello, my friends. I am so grateful to you for pressing play on today's podcast. I do not think you will have any regrets because I've got the great Jeff Jarvis joining me, journalism professor, media critic, and all-around awesome, smart, super thoughtful Jeff Jarvis on today's show. That conversation begins at 24 minutes. If you want to skip ahead, but I've also got your news headlines and sound that I found from yesterday, 84 days away from Election Day. So stay right here for the headlines coming your way. Thank you very much for your support of this show. It's independent media. Jeff Jarvis and I talk about it being the future, and I cannot book, prep, host, edit, and post this amazing daily news and analysis podcast that brings this community together each and every day. Without your support, I'm here Monday through Friday and often on Saturday and so many other special events, including our weekly hangouts, patreon.com/Pete Dominic right now. Thank you to those of you who donated a little extra something to put together my swing state tour, which I'll be hopefully doing in September and October, trying to get to Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada, just to say a few of the swing states that I hope to get to and interview people, knock doors, make phone calls, and just meet with organizers, doing whatever I can to help elect Democrats and save democracy in November. All right, well, there you go. Let's get to the headlines, shall we? There are 84 days before Election Day, and here are your headlines for Tuesday, August 13th. That is the smack in the middle of August. It might be the first week of school for many of you or your children, and I hope that you have a great school year. Ours doesn't start till the second week or just after Labor Day in September, although Ava goes back to college and this week, actually Monday, but she's transferred from Ithaca College to in upstate New York to the city, to New York City. She wants to be in the city, and she's going to the Fashion Institute of Technology now to study television and film. So very excited for Ava. Julia's starting 11th grade in a couple of weeks, and if you or your kids are back in school, send the pictures, share them on Discord with the community. And I hope you and your family have a great school year. All right, now let's go to the big story yesterday. Was that Elon Musk and the disgraced former president, these two cartoon villain, quote, billionaires, were supposed to meet up on Elon Musk's social media platform, X, or Twitter. And, well, Elon Musk guaranteed entertainment, but he delivered technical difficulties instead because he planned to host the Republican nominee for an interview live on X, formerly Twitter Spaces, at 8 p.m. But for the second time in 2024's presidential election, the social media site was glitchy, and many users apparently couldn't listen to the interview. Of course, it wasn't an interview. When the person asking the questions has endorsed you and is a donor to your campaign, it's a campaign ad or propaganda. But the irony, I guess you could call it, is that the last time Elon Musk tried this, it was to help launch DeSantis's campaign, and then Trump started calling him DeSantis. But Trump made fun of the technical glitches when Ron DeSantis tried to do the similar thing. So Kamala Harris's campaign just recycled Trump's criticisms of Ron DeSantis trying to launch on Twitter. When Trump and Elon failed yesterday, Elon Musk blamed it on some kind of a hack or attack. Of course, there's no proof of that apparently, but Kamala Harris's campaign went on Truth Social and recycled Donald Trump's criticisms of when Ron DeSantis tried it. So pretty smart move by the Harris campaign. Boy, they are nimble, quick, and smart and funny, and it's effective. It's effective on TikTok. It's effective on Twitter and all the rest of the social media platforms. And of course, they've gone into Trump's own social media platform and they're ridiculing him there on Truth Social. So it's all working. Let's get to the rest of your headlines from yesterday. Ukraine's top military commander says his forces now control 386 square miles of Russia's neighboring Kursk region, the first time a Ukrainian military official has publicly commented on the gains of the lightning incursion that has embarrassed the Kremlin. And the president, Vladimir Putin, of course, lashed out at the West over Ukraine's week-long incursion into Russian territory in a tense televised meeting with his top officials, and it will probably retaliate. Ukraine is bracing for that, and I'm sure it's going to be ugly. So watching for that. Also watching for Iran to retaliate. The Biden administration preparing for a potential attack on Israel by Iran and its proxies as soon as this week in retaliation for the recent assassinations of top leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby told reporters yesterday we have to be prepared for what could be a significant set of attacks, which is why, again, we've increased our force posture and capabilities in the region. Even in just the last few days, the Pentagon, which rarely makes public statements on the location of submarines, said Sunday that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has ordered the USS Georgia, a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine, to the region. Secretary of Defense has also ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group to accelerate its movement from the Indo-Pacific to the Middle East. So that is news on Iran and Russia and Ukraine. And let's stay overseas in Europe, where an extremely dangerous fire is burning near Athens, Greece. Hundreds of firefighters yesterday battled a major wildfire that broke out near Athens and raced through parched forest, destroying properties and prompting evacuation orders. In some places, the flames were more than 80 feet tall. Good God. The blaze, one of the worst to threaten the Greek capital this year in what has been a busy fire season, in part because of a dry winter and a hot summer. Last year, Europe's exceptionally hot summer contributed to 47,000 deaths, though heat adaptation measures prevented many more. Man, that sounds absolutely horrific in Europe. And let's come home now to California, where yesterday in Southern California, Los Angeles was rattled by a 4.4 magnitude earthquake. It was centered just outside Pasadena, about 5 miles northeast of the city. I heard from our friend Ronnie Gonzalez, who is longtime listener, and you know him from our hangouts. He joined us at Pod Jam. Great guy. He said it's earthquake season in Southern California, and apparently he was urinating when it happened. So he felt like he was drunk at a bar. Ronnie, I hope everything is okay, and all of the rest of our friends out in Southern California as well. Now let's go to North Dakota, where a ballot initiative to legalize recreational marijuana made it. It's qualified for the November election. The state's top election official said yesterday it sets up another vote on the issue in the conservative state after voters and lawmakers rejected previous efforts in recent years. So we'll see what happens in North Dakota if they finally bring the wacky tobacco there, and that should be an exciting thing to watch along with other ballot initiatives in November. How about this headline? Immigrants are becoming U.S. citizens at a faster rate. The federal government is now processing citizenship requests faster than at any point over the last decade, allowing thousands of immigrants to become new Americans every week. The newly speedy process has allowed the government to work through a backlog that built up during the Trump administration and pandemic. So, man, all those new citizens, they can now vote, and that's how we're working the great replacement. That's the theory. Of course, the theory could also be that new citizens that come into the country can vote for whoever they want, and if Republicans have great ideas to sell them, they should, and then they could gain their vote as well. How about that? All right, those are the headlines that I've got for you from yesterday. And now let's get to some of the sound that I found, starting with Jon Stewart in The Daily Show. He's back and, of course, hosts on Mondays. And Stewart and the rest of the late-night comedians had no shortage of material to work with because it seems like they've been pretty much off all summer. Many of them have the networks barely working, these guys, budgets, issues, and more. I could talk to you about being in the industry in New York City, of course. But here's Jon Stewart in The Daily Show last night. Does a great job, very funny and very smart, taking a look at just how absurd it is that Trump is lying about who he was on a helicopter with, mixing up two black politicians. And Stewart does just an excellent job pointing out how absurd this entire thing is. Very funny and very smart. Trigger alert, we do hear about 20 seconds of Trump, which is necessary to set up this whole bizarre carnival of lies.
Donald Trump doesn't need the fake news media and their AI crowd shots to win this thing. Because he's got inside information on Kamala Harris from someone she used to date.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together. And it was an emergency landing. But he told me terrible things about her.
You were in a helicopter with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who famously dated Kamala Harris. And while the helicopter was going down, as you were plunging to your imminent death, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown turns to you and says, "This might not mean anything to you now, but do you remember that lady I was going out with? The prosecutor. Well, before we die, I just want you to know she's the worst. I do not want to meet my maker without giving you that piece of information. If you survive, you may need it." Oh my God! I got to tell you, I'm sure a moment like that was seared not only into the memory of Donald Trump, but also into the memory of former Mayor Willie Brown.
To be clear, you have never been on a helicopter with Donald Trump.
No, I have not. Are you kidding me? I just assumed that he was on a helicopter ride with somebody black and he made a mistake and thought it was me.
What? That is so up. That I'm sure that is not what happened. What are the chances Trump is just mixing up his black people?
It seems that the African-American politician in question was not Kamala Harris's ex, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, but rather this man, Nate Holden, a former Los Angeles City Council member who says he had a bumpy ride with Trump in 1990.
Oh my God! Do you know what this means? Nate Holden, former Los Angeles City Council member, told Donald Trump as their helicopter was going down bad things about Kamala Harris that I guess Willie Brown had told him if they knew each other. That is the only explanation, right?
Holden saying, quote, "Willie is the short black guy living in San Francisco. I'm a tall black guy living in Los Angeles. I guess we all look alike."
Hey! Donald Trump is not racist. He just meets a lot of people on death helicopters. And he needs some mnemonic device help. If the chopper goes down, that's not Willie Brown. A little mnemonic device. Here's one. Here's one. If the flight's not going great, you're probably riding with Nate.
All right. Good stuff from Jon Stewart and The Daily Show yesterday. Now let's jump over to Earth 2. And that's where reality is a completely different thing, in case you don't know. And let's listen to Larry Kudlow, former Trumper administration, and Kelly Conway also worked with Trump, and she's back trying to advise him. And they're trying to talk to him through the TV, telling him to stop insulting Kamala Harris and stay on message. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think he's watching or cares.
But he has to turn them into important gifts. He has to hammer away, does he not? I mean, that's what he... Don't wander off. Don't call her stupid and all kinds of names. Stay on message.
The winning formula for President Trump is very plain to see. It's fewer insults, more insights, and that policy contrast. He's got that hunger, swagger, underdog, underestimated of 2016.
Yeah, he's really underestimated. Well, maybe he is. All right, that is one piece of unsolicited advice on Fox News. Now here comes another from the former disgraced, embarrassed, sycophant Kevin McCarthy talking to Donald Trump through Fox News, and he's telling Trump to stop questioning the size of her crowds.
And you've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position when it comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime. Question what did she do when she was supposed to take care of the border as a czar. Question that they brought inflation. And she was the tie-breaking vote when it came to inflation, when it came to IRS agents. This is a perfect person to run against. You thought John Kerry was a flip-flopper? She is the biggest flip-flop with the most extreme positions, and you got a short time frame to do it. So don't sit back, get out there and start making the case and use her own words to do it to her.
There you go, Kevin McCarthy. I'm sure that Trump is definitely going to listen to that, and hopefully not this, because I'm staying at Fox News. And here is Fox Business's Stuart Varney praising Kamala Harris's campaign and criticizing Donald Trump's yesterday.
Look closely at her demeanor. The giggling, inappropriate laughter has gone. The rambling word salad's gone, because she never leaves her teleprompter. Her campaign has brought in some Obama people, and they have improved her public performance. Trump's frustrated. He's arguing crowd size, claiming her numbers are inflated by AI. He's miffed that Harris has taken over his no tax on tips idea. He's actually looking back to 2020, telling a big donor, we've got to stop the steal all over again. This is according to the New York Times, which also reports he used foul language to describe his opponent. Not a good idea if you want to attract suburban women who can make or break your campaign. 2 weeks ago, it seemed the election was Trump's to lose. Now it seems he's got to fight to win, and he hasn't quite figured out how to do it. Second hour of Varney just getting started.
Oh, Stuart Varney giving some advice to Donald Trump and the campaign. I'm sure he'll definitely take that. All right, finally, I've got Stephen Colbert, again, back from a couple of weeks off, and I'll give you a couple of minutes of him before we get to my conversation with Jarvis.
Happy to be back. We've been off for 2 weeks, and over the vacation, I've been doing something that I haven't done in a long time, and that's enjoying the news. It's all because of Vice President Kamala Harris. Her 11th hour... Her 11th hour candidacy has supercharged this campaign. It reminds me of when the Cleveland Cavaliers drafted LeBron James to replace Joe Biden. Now, according to the New York Times, this is a Times poll. This is a New York Times, Siena College, Downey Cent Booster Beads poll. Kamala Harris is ahead of Donald Trump by 4 percentage points in the battleground states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Now, I know. Love these people. But listen up, folks. I know that sounds exciting, but remember, if we've learned anything in this campaign, it's that polls don't matter, only votes matter. Unless Donald Trump is losing, in which case, whee! And her candidacy has gotten a huge boost from her choice for VP, Minnesota Governor and shaved mall Santa, Tim Walz. At his introductory rally in Philly, Walz really knew how to connect with his core demo.
Some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys.
And we see you too, sir. And we are so excited. We are so excited to get together to compare the top 10 Bob Seger songs with you later. Obviously, it doesn't have to be number one, but Fire Lake is up there. Walz grew up in a tiny town, which he described this way.
When I grew up, community was a way of life. My high school class was 24 people. I was related to half of them.
I'm guessing that made prom night a little awkward. The theme was inbreeding under the sea.
All right, Colbert is back, and he's not afraid to take shots at Tim Walz. A whole new bunch of new material there, of course. And so when people say that the comedians don't make fun of Democrats, they absolutely do. Make fun of anybody you can. It's just done differently, and you don't like the way it's done. Does not mean they're not making jokes about Democrats. Just wanted to make that quick point. All right, well, I'm going to have to wrap it up there. I am out of time, and I want to get this posted by 6 a.m., usually by midnight, but on days when I can't get it done by midnight, I try to get it up by 6 a.m., and I'm right up against that deadline now, and I've got this great conversation with Jeff Jarvis to share with you. I think you are going to love it. Jarvis, of course, is an author. He is a professor. He is a commentator who actually became kind of world famous when Howard Stern would take his calls on the Howard Stern Show for years, and I think still does. He's a public speaker, former television critic. Check him out at buzzmachine.com. That's his blog, his website, of course, on Twitter, and find him everywhere else on social media that he exists on Facebook and Blue Sky and Mastodon and the rest. Had a great conversation with Jeff Jarvis, as I always do, about the change in the nature of the campaign, the presidential campaign, how media is covering it, and so much more. I hope you like it. I hope you'll go and tell him. Let's do it right now with Jeff Jarvis. Jeff Jarvis, everybody, is back, and I'm very excited to see you. It's been way too long. How are you doing, sir?
It is. It's been way too long, my friend. It's good to see you. We're in happier days now, I think.
I wanted to tell you, I think it was the week maybe before Biden stepped down, and you were at some kind of a band camp or something, but I had wanted to talk to you then because you were a leave Biden alone guy. You were one of the loudest voices on social media and everywhere else. Leave Biden alone. How do you feel about how things have unfolded?
I think that he was unfairly kicked to the curb. I think that he's been a brilliant president and a good man. And I hate how certain Democrats and much of media treated him. However, I proudly go back to the fact that I have for those of you who can watch, this is my 2019 OG Kamala hat. I supported her before I supported Joe. I was excited. I was nervous what was going to happen the moment he pulled out. The fact that he endorsed Kamala immediately, and as we find out since, worked it so that the open convention jerks were not going to win the day, and she would win the day. I'm very happy how it turned out.
Those were all legitimate and fair concerns at the time.
I think so.
I think mainly because of the precedent of the Democratic Party and some of the voices that wanted to see that.
Yeah, I think the worst was media. I think it was terrible. The things that they said about him, they're not saying about Trump, and he's clearly 1,000 times worse off than Biden would be on his worst day or his sleepiest moment. And I've now given up, finally, on all big media. I think the Times is broken. The Washington Post has been invaded by Murdochians. Murdoch is still in control of his bully pulpits, has Sinclair next to him. American newspapers are controlled by hedge funds. CNN and NPR are rudderless and scared. Big old media, it's time to give up on it.
How dare you? I got the Sunday Times yesterday, and I went through the magazine and the Arts and Leisure, and A1 had so many articles, many of which I didn't even know were things that were unfolding around the world, because they still invest in foreign correspondence and arts and culture. Why are you so critical of this newspaper? It's not perfect, but it still has a lot of great stuff in there.
I want it to be better. I got mad at someone else recently, I'll leave him out of it for now, who complained when Joe Biden complained in his interview about the press, tried to compare that with Trump complaining about the press. And I said that was way off and completely wrong. What Biden was doing and what we on the left are doing when we complain about media is trying to improve it. On the right, they're trying to destroy it. The Times still has great reporters. I still pay for it. I'm not among those who says I'm going to cancel my subscription. Plus, I'm a media critic and a journalism professor, so I needed to read it. But it has fallen down again and again. The both sides ism. Just this morning, every day I can find something. Unfortunately, I now dread opening the New York Times every morning, because I'm going to see something that's going to get my blood pressure going, piss me off. And today, for example, Peter Baker, who's among the worst of them, wrote a story about Biden's CBS interview yesterday, to stay on Biden for a minute, and then made a point. So he didn't address his age and condition. No, he didn't. And you had to point that out in the lead, and you never point that out in the stories. Now, later on, Baker was on Morning Joe, and he was talking about Trump, but I don't see him doing that in stories in the Times.
I want to ask you about going back to the launch. Kamala Harris and the way that Democrats did coalesce around her, which I don't think a lot of people were rightfully concerned, including you, me, and others, that wouldn't happen. I just want to get your take on Jeff Jarvis's takeaways from the Kamala Harris launch, and you can obviously include her choice of Tim Walz, the Veep stakes. We were all speculating about who that would be, and it's I'll give you mine later, but I want to know yours.
I think it's been brilliant. I think it's been amazing. Again, I was a fan of Kamala going way, way back when. I actually met her once. Wait, this is obnoxious what I'm about to say. I moderated an event at Davos where she participated when she was still an AG. I didn't know great insight from that. And last time around, I contributed to the campaign and went to a fundraiser for her. So I've been a big fan for a long time. I think she's a brilliant politician. And so it's even better than I could have imagined. And what's the greatest thing, Pete, is what Walz is saying and what people are saying now is we do have the joy back. Joy that I haven't known probably, God, when? I guess Obama. And before that, I don't know when. And it's stirring to see. It's brilliantly done. In the Veep stakes, I think that we proved as Democrats that we had a great backbench. And I was all for Walz. I'm one of those who barely heard of him, didn't know a damn thing about him. But he impressed me so much. And to get mad at the Times again today, or was it the Washington Post? I can't tell the difference sometimes, is trying to argue that some Jewish Democrats are now worried about anti-Semitism. And it was yet again a defense of Shapiro. Shapiro's a brilliant politician, but I think Walz is a better choice. The most amazing thing to me, too, was the immediate response of black women for Kamala Harris, then black men for Kamala Harris. And then we had to follow suit, and I went to the white men for Kamala Harris. I'm happy to say that I wasn't qualified to attend your bald men for Kamala Harris.
I haven't actually hosted it yet. I appreciate you mentioning it. I'm trying to set it up still. And if you want, there's still time.
I'm not qualified, Pete. I got hair. I got a full head of it.
I'm saying by the time I do it and get my act together.
So I think it's gone great so far. But what I'm already seeing is the press trying to find something going wrong, trying to predict something going wrong. They are, in my view, like Eeyore as a wedding planner. Oh, it could go wrong. Something else could go wrong. So who was your choice in the Veep stakes?
Who I liked myself was I like Pete Buttigieg. I grew to like him as a choice. I, like you, didn't know Tim Walz very well, and I saw him on paper. He looked good on paper, but I thought she might pick Andy Beshear because of what I'd heard from Kentucky-based listeners about him and the kind of candidate he'd been. And then, like everybody else, was like, oh, she's going to pick Shapiro. I would have, like a lot of other people, been happy with whoever. It was always going to be a white man. And I think the idea that you pick a white man that feels, and probably most of these guys all did, but certainly Walz is that guy, real comfortable with answering to a woman, much less a black woman. Like, he is doing a great job pointing to her and saying, thank you for bringing back the joy. Talk a little bit more about why that's important, because I'm feeling that in my life. Listeners are feeling that. You can see the energy. There's never been maybe anything like this, because when Hillary was potentially going to be the first woman, people just didn't love her and they knew her and they were familiar with her and all the knocks that she'd taken over the years and so on. But this is so different even than Obama. And I feel like it matters a great deal because of the engagement that it creates and how that engagement gets the vote out.
Yeah, and Obama was interesting. I actually, when Obama ran against Hillary, I backed Hillary, just because I thought that Obama's talk about hope and change was nonspecific. And so when he got elected, it's funny, my most progressive friends after Obama's tenure ended up disappointed with him because he didn't do everything they wanted. I was delighted with him because he did so much more than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
And I think Obama was a spectacular president. Hillary, I backed completely. I think she's brilliant. I think she would have been wonderful. She also wouldn't have been able to get anything done. Congress would have been against her. The media would have been against her. It would have been awful, but would have been way better than Trump. And so Kamala, I've been trying to think about this. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. She had to be thinking about how she would run a campaign, whether it was now or 2028. Did she sit down and say, I'm going to bring joy? Is that just her? And it clicked and it worked and she went with that flow. she laughs and they make fun of her laugh, and she doesn't give a damn if they make fun of it. And I respect her for that.
I think they probably at some point somebody must have said they're attacking this person for laughing. Let's turn that what they perceive as a strength, and it's a sexist thing, the cackle, women laughing, into what they perceive as weakness into a strength. And then at some point, somebody, whether it's Tim Walz or the campaign, said, thank you you're joyful. You're happy. When you laugh, it's laughing is good. They don't laugh. And whatever they did, however it's working between the joy and for them, which is positive, and calling the MAGA and J.D. Vance and others weird, the messaging seems to be more effective than anything I've ever seen a Democrat.
Yeah, I agree.
It's simple.
And let's hope it works.
It's working so far. How could it change at this point? JD,
don't jinx it. See, anybody who starts making good predictions, I require that you have to now light a candle, cross your fingers, turn around 3 times, and sacrifice a Big Mac to the gods. Well, you can't jinx us.
See, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to continue to talk the way I am, but actually take action and act like we're down 10 points. And I'm hoping to take the podcast to Pennsylvania, to Michigan, Arizona, Nevada over the next 2 months so that I can still say these things and not have to, but I'm actually doing the work because that seemingly is what matters, because as we have to win by big so that the Supreme Court doesn't take this back.
And we got to try to save the Senate. That's my biggest worry now. If we think we can get the House and if we think we can get the presidency, a lot can still go wrong with the Senate. And one more thing that a certain senator from West Virginia we can blame for screwing us over. If there's any chance of holding on to 51 in the Senate and getting the House, then my hope is that unlike Obama and unlike Biden, Kamala will just run with that 4-year period, 2-year period, likely, of getting shit done.
Now, who's getting ahead of us? I feel like you need to now spin on a dime and throw some pixie dust over your shoulder, and then we can do shrooms together, because that's what I've always wanted to do with Jarvis. So let's just a little bit more about what needs to happen, do you think, in terms of what people can be doing? What we can also just talk about what media is getting wrong as well, because there is seemingly a double standard. What do you say to somebody who says, number one, you're hearing a lot of journalists in the mainstream say Kamala Harris hasn't answered any questions. She's done no press conferences yet.
The essence here is that Kamala Harris does not need the press. The press needs Kamala Harris. I said the same thing about Biden, that people say, oh, he's not doing enough interviews. And he wouldn't talk to A.G. Sulzberger at the Times. After the Times treated him that way, I wouldn't have, if I worked for Biden, I would have said, no, go nowhere near them. At this point, Kamala Harris is a little damn busy launching a campaign with no notice, 3 weeks, convention coming up, has to formulate policy and get that out. And now to sit down because she's going to face the tough questions. Screw them. I would not answer most of the media. And I started a Twitter thread the other day. I'm curious what your answers are. I want a candidate list of when she does give her first interview. With whom should it be? Besides you, of course. And there's a lot, right? Should she go on Colbert and go for the laughs? Should she go on Howard Stern just as another poke in the eye to the New York Times? Joy Reid would be great, I think. Who else?
There's so many different people in both alternative media and in kind of mainstream media I think the question is, whoever they represent is going to be a different kind of interview, whatever their agenda is. Howard's in the tank, obviously, but he would do a fascinating, humanizing interview of her, which very few people could do. And I think the platform matters a lot. I think probably Alex Jones she should go on with. It's interesting because I'm not even sure what the best questions for even a objective, much less progressive. If Mehdi Hassan or Ali Velshi sat down with her, what would be the best question for a progressive? I don't know. I think that no matter what happens, and this is the other question or criticism people are levying, is that she doesn't have a policy list positions on her website, and she doesn't come out and support a policy because a lot of the focus is on stopping Trump from destroying America. A lot of the message is about Project 2025 and scaring progressives into voting to get back our rights that we lost and maintain the ones that we still got.
I think her policies are going to be very much aligned with Joe Biden's. She is going to have to, she already has come up with, I think, a policy about Gaza and saying that we must have a ceasefire now. Probably needs to be a little stronger and more specific on that. I think what a progressive would push her on is how progressive will you be? My view is that this is not, it never is, and especially isn't now, about undecideds. That's complete bullshit. Undecideds aren't undecided. They just want attention. If you can't have it decided by Trump by now, then you're just stupid. So no, this is about turnout. This is completely going to be about turnout, about passion, about eagerness. And so she's going to go more progressive. And I think that's okay. Will you consider remaking the Supreme Court? What will you do about voting rights and how will you get it passed? Progressive taxation, codifying Roe, absolutely. So I think all she's going to do is confirm the things that her base, her quickly enlarging base, needs to hear to be excited to come out. Now, if she went on Fox, what's she going to do? They lie to her 10 times and she'll respond to that. That'd be ridiculous. If the New York Times, the Washington Post, no, stay away. Don't give them the time of day. Not at all. Not between now and the election. Don't even bother.
What about just doing, as Trump did the other day, a quote general press conference, which would be a normal thing to do, just taking questions from reporters?
Look at what's happened so far. When she has pulled off near the plane to talk to the reporters, what do they question her about? Not policy, not anything else. They question her about Donald Trump because they want the fight. Did the reporters ask Trump any decent questions in that press conference? No, they did not. The press conference is a ridiculous format. Now, having said that, Biden's last press conference, as it turned out, was very well handled because it was his chance to let them ask a question, and then he went off and he talked about the shit he knows. He talked about public policy and foreign policy and monetary policy, and he showed off his knowledge. She could do that, but I think she has less experience at that, and reporters are jerks, and they're going to try to get their moment. This is all about their access and their attention, and it's not about serving the public. And the other thing that's so great, I go back to Black women for Kamala Harris. We don't need the media anymore to organize. There's a direct connection here that happens around the media. And media don't like that, but it's the reality. So I think the question has to be, you're right, what are you going to ask, and what is the electorate going to learn from this they don't already know?
One of the things about new media is, and a lot of people I think are writing about this, how she has launched on TikTok and Trump has not. Any thoughts on that?
For one thing, I am way disturbed by the possibility of banning TikTok. I think that's a horrible First Amendment violation. And I think that is the voice of the people, one place for the voice of the people. So I'm hoping there's some way to turn this back because, yes, she's using TikTok. She needs TikTok. And I think that matters greatly. So I'm not sure where we go with social media. I'm doing a conference on Friday, just a small journalism thing where they're looking at journalism after social media because Facebook has basically pulled news off the platform, because Twitter is ruined. Social media didn't turn out to be the organizing tool that we want. Podcasts like this, to my mind, are social media. You have a relationship with your audience. And they talk to you and you talk back. And I think that that's the future of media, is this smaller scale connection with people that we have in communities.
Yeah, where you have some access and a lot of trust because, to some extent, that access with the principals and even the guests. Yeah, I hope you're right about that to some extent.
What do you think the convention, what would be a great, conventions are ridiculous. They're meaningless. They accomplish nothing. The Republicans did what they did. What would you hope for in a brilliantly, given the present circumstances, given what's happening, what should the convention accomplish?
I think that's arguably true of the past few years, past few conventions. And a lot of that is because of the candidates, Mitt Romney and Hillary Clinton and the rest, obviously. But I remember Obama in 2008, I believe his convention was in Denver Stadium, which is an NFL stadium, and it was filled up with people. And I think that dominating media and ratings for a few nights and doing some unconventional things, and more than anything else, having a lot of energy and enthusiasm will crush Trump and his supporters, because they're already trying to act like it's not happening by saying photos and videos were AI'd. I think that is what Trump said. I think creating a lot of excitement, making it a show, and getting as many exciting people in there. And I think it's going to be a hot ticket. I don't think it's going to be hard to do. Bring in the celebrities that actually make a difference, as opposed to who they had at the RNC. I've got all kinds of ideas. Come on, let's go.
Taylor Swift.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll open for something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I think hearing the constituents that are left out on the other side, I think communities that aren't represented and aren't heard matters.
The people that the Republicans MAGA movement would refer to as weird, LGBT folks, young folks, black and brown folks, all those people are going to get highlighted, I think. And as opposed to the Republican National Convention, which was such a snooze. Everything about it.
Well, that was the goal, was to have it be a snooze, have nothing go wrong.
Yeah.
How much have we forgotten already the assassination attempt? How much have we forgotten already the Egyptian bribe? That's media's fault. Speaking of media, let me ask you another question. This is my show, not yours.
Yeah.
The Politico leak or hack.
Yeah.
We don't know that it was a hack. There was maybe separate events. But Politico sat on this. The Washington Post has sat on this. Evidently, other places have gotten material and are sitting on this. Last time around, we know damn well nobody sat on it. And we learned the campaign's risotto recipe, much more, and it was used against the campaign and it had an impact. What do you think media should be doing with this material now?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question. It's literally right here on my list. And your answer matters more than mine because you're a journalism professor. And I think it's obviously not the easiest choice. I think you have to decide what's relevant when you get your hands on certain material and maybe what's not. What is in the public's interest should we publish versus getting ratings and clicks and making money off of it. But whether it's, and it also matters where they got it. Was it a leak from inside the campaign, which looks likely, or was it a foreign source, which they're blaming, like Iran or China or someone who could possibly, obviously could be. So I don't know. You're the one who's been an editor and sat in those rooms and made those decisions. What should we know about what they know about this Vance dossier, which is the vetting everything about J.D. Vance, which, by the way, apparently he dressed in drag on Halloween or something.
That would raise him considerably, in my view. Dick Toffel, who used to be the president, I think it was, ProPublica, said the rules were very simple, twofold. One, are the documents legitimate? Do you know that they're real? And two, is there public interest, as you just said? That's it. And the source, in his view, doesn't matter.
Doesn't it go back to the Pentagon Papers, the decision, Daniel Ellsberg and the Washington Post and the Pentagon Papers, and there's a Supreme Court precedent on it, but obviously there's the Washington Post decision, or rather the New York Times decision on that, and others, all of there had to decide on that. And then we've had subsequent leaks, obviously, from WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and all kinds of others. This is not like this has never happened before, but it seems like you and others are saying, you destroyed the Clinton campaign by sharing all this information and the timing with which you did it and the drip, and you're holding on to it with the Trump campaign? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and Ben Smith, who's now the editor of Semaphore, was the editor of BuzzFeed News, was in between that, media columnist in the New York Times, just was getting holier than thou about this. But, well, no, we've learned things we need to hold off. He's the guy who released the entire Russia dossier on Trump. To much consternation and disagreement in the field of journalism. I don't necessarily disagree with Ben having released it, but to now flip-flop in this case, I don't get it.
Right. I wonder if there's anything in there that really would be that damaging. Maybe not. Maybe that's why we haven't seen it.
Or it may be boring because he's boring. The other argument, the self-interested argument on the Democrat side, is if it's bad enough that it gives Trump an excuse to drop Vance and get somebody, air quotes, better, that may be harmful to our side. I don't know how he can drop somebody at this stage, but because the ballots are soon to be printed.
Yeah, that's the most important point. That's no longer a question as soon as those ballots are printed.
I think so, but God knows. Nothing's sacred in the most sacred institution we have, which is free and fair voting. Right? Everything's going to get screwed up.
They talk about how the vice president, the choice doesn't matter, which I think is ridiculous. Of course it matters. But in this case, it would seem J.D. Vance is bringing nobody along. There's no constituency for him. He's not a likable guy. He is attach people that aren't even political because they don't have kids, or that could be the perception, or they have cats. The guy said that Trump was a Nazi at one point. He's a hollow barrel. I'm just not sure, Jarvis, who in MAGA world likes this guy. He gives speeches. No one shows up. My point is, nobody likes the guy. Nobody.
Peter Thiel likes the guy. And I think that's what mattered. Thiel is an eminence grise on far-right libertarian politics, and he has money, and Trump wanted money, and he pushed the influence there.
Yeah.
And that's how I think we got Vance. And considering how awful he is, it may be a good thing for us that he did.
Got to ask you about Elon Musk and Twitter, too. Elon Musk is interviewing Trump on Twitter, and you said something like this shouldn't be an interview. It should just propaganda.
It's a commercial, yeah.
It's a commercial, yes. That's what you said on Twitter, which, by the way, you're still great on, and I think is still great. I mean, I feel like Twitter has been pretty great with all of its flaws and all of its ways in the past couple of weeks. I feel like it has been. But what are your thoughts on what's happening on that platform? And even more importantly, with Elon Musk, who's gone so far off into conspiracy and white supremacist land that he's no longer hiding. That's for sure.
Musk is a horrible character. And considering how he's treated his daughter,
yeah,
one almost wants to say tragic, but it's not tragic. He causes all the tragedy. And I give her tremendous credit for courage to stand up to him. Yeah, Musk is horrible, and I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm on Threads, and I'm on Mastodon, and I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere. You can't get rid of me. But I'm on Twitter. And on all those other platforms, people will often scold me and others for being anywhere near Twitter. But as I think we've talked about in previous shows, Pete, there are communities there that matter. Black Twitter matters. Communities that it's easy for an individual to move, but to move a community is difficult. People have invested in it. And so I'm still on Twitter, and I value the people who are there, and I want to fight for the turf. I was thinking today, my optimistic hope, I'll have to turn around on a dime and burn something in effigy for this, is that after the election is over, no matter how it turns out, actually, Twitter is then of absolutely no use to Musk. The use that he had for it was political and for attention. And maybe he'll sell the parts to somebody decent. That would be a wonderful thing for a lot less than he paid.
I think he's there for the attention, so why would he change? He's still going to want that attention.
It gets him in trouble. He gets bored with things.
Yeah.
He's got other trouble. I think Tesla's in bad shape. And who knows? It's hard to psychoanalyze him.
So we're about 80 days. How many days away from November 5th?
80-some.
And Trump is acting increasingly crazy, which seems like something we've been saying for 10 years. But I feel like two things were pretty outstanding. First, this Truth Social post about him predicting that Biden is going to come back at the DNC. And then his other post that at the Kamala Harris Michigan rally, that the photos were AI'd and that those people aren't there. But of course, there's hundreds of, if not thousands, of personal cameras. And it's just a dumb thing to say. And there is that energy everywhere she goes. I don't know what to tell you. But those two posts to me, and the fact that it seems like he's losing enthusiasm with these long, meandering speeches. And I don't know, maybe he's scared to campaign because he got almost killed, which would be a fair thing to be concerned about. Nonetheless, there's 80 days left. Jeff, he's going to keep acting crazier and crazier. Obviously, that's dangerous for a lot of reasons, although I don't think anybody wants to go to jail for this man anymore. But it's not going to help him. He's not able to stay on any kind of message or strategy. And I just feel like every day is going to be a terrible day for him and a better day for Harris, Walsh, and Earth One. At least that's the way I want to see it. What are your thoughts?
I think a few things, Pete. One is that his dangerous lunacy should be the lead story in every paper every day.
Got it.
And once again, Peter Baker today goes on about whether Biden is too frail to be president. And he doesn't go on in print in the Times about how completely dangerously delusional and insane Donald Trump is. Point one. Point two. I think the stuff like the horrible AI'd crowd is an effort to create a new signal of belonging among the MAGAs. And I've said this for a while. I've been listening to Reading Hannah Arendt as a podcast. It's a great podcast, and I recommend it. And I've oddly been rereading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich because the first inspired me to do the second. And the parallels are obvious, and they're huge, and they matter. But what strikes me more than anything else is when Trump says this loony shit, he may actually believe it. But what it becomes is a badge to wear for the MAGAs, and they'll say it. And the press thinks, how do they believe this stuff? They don't believe it. Doesn't matter whether they believe it. They say it so that they can show that they are affiliated with that end of things, that they are insurrectionists, that they are part of the cult. And nothing's going to change that. I had a discussion with some journalists this morning about how we bring more people in. And you have to give up on 30 to 40% of America for right now. They're lost cause right now. And you can't act as if the center has moved. It hasn't. The sane people are still sane. They're just more insane. And the more insane he gets, the more ways he gives for people to affiliate with him by agreeing and cheering with what he says. And so logic isn't a tool anymore. Information isn't a tool anymore. The only tool we probably have right now is mockery, is calling them weird. But the fear I have with that is that too diminishes the evil. That's
right. I think that's fair. I think it's fair, but I think we tried and we'll continue to talk about the evil and Project 2025 and everything that we need to be afraid of while also saying, and also it's weird what you're doing and what you're saying every day.
And pathetic and stupid. And we need some more adjectives.
Do you think that he is losing supporters? You're seeing some of the prominent ones turn away, Tim Pool and Nick Fuentes, and
they're insane too, and they went to the insane RFK. So it's just a nutball sandwich.
Yeah. What did you? Is that the craziest story, the bear story that you've heard in American politics? I didn't even know if it qualifies as American politics. What a bizarre story that was.
It really is, and I used to be a TV critic, right? So I reviewed Roseanne, the TV show. I have letters from Roseanne liking and hating what I've said about her. I didn't even recognize Roseanne in that video because I was so focused on the nuttiness of the Shaggy Bear story.
That's funny.
Did you know it was Roseanne watching it the first time?
Yeah, I think I knew because it was wherever I went to it, it was described as he was talking to Roseanne. But
I thought it was some grandma who's nodding her head, waiting to go back and refill her coffee.
She's gone. Went to QAnon conspiracy land, and yet she seemed shocked by RFK.
Or at least bored. And he's completely lunatic. Do you think if he stays in and gets on ballots, I think the one thing is it clearly hurts Trump now, not.
Yeah, I think that he is a conspiracy guy. I think he's anti-vax guy, and I think that the vast majority of Americans are not and don't want anything to do with those guys. So he takes from Trump. He gets the anti-vax people who aren't the meanest people in the world. They're just terrified of vaccines, unfortunately. Trump gets everybody else. But the whole anti-vax crowd is overwhelmingly found a home, unfortunately, but it's with him. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to what I said before. I think it's all a turnout game. And so it's not the people that Trump is losing people. The question is, will he lose some of their adrenaline and they won't show up?
Yeah.
But there is still a lurking fear in me of this racist country not voting for a black Indian woman.
Yeah.
And so I'm still worried about that. And so we've got to get everybody out we possibly
That's why I think these kind of grassroots, the non-black ones, but even there's issues obviously with black men voting for any woman, much less a black woman, unfortunately. So they're the black men for Harris call and all the white people, white women especially, that many of which you can peel off, led by Shannon Watts, Moms to Men. I think these kinds of campaigns and grassroots things and all these new media, Zoom and other ways that we have are going to make a difference to get those traditional, maybe reserved, maybe bigoted, ignorant constituencies to come out and vote for these Harrison Walls. The more you see people that look and act like you and live where you live with their signs up and with their hats and their T-shirts and their outspoken posts on social media, I think that stuff matters.
I think it does too. And that's why I go back to saying that they don't need media anymore. Media does not set the agenda. Media are not the conveners of the of public discourse. We're doing that on our own.
We did it today. Jeff Jarvis. Anything else before I let you go? I am so happy.
I guess I should. Yes, one more thing. I will have a book coming out in October.
Eve, the new Jarvis book. Wow.
Yeah, new book, yeah. So the Why We Must Reclaim the Internet from Moguls, Misanthropes, and Moral Panic. So that'll be out in October. So I suppose
you are a machine.
If you look it up, Web20 is the discount code.
I will link to it in today's show notes. Everybody should order now to thank Jarvis for joining us so often.
Thank you very much.
We are so grateful, sir.
And I'll more obnoxiously promote it later.
There you go. That's Jeff Jarvis's way of saying he'll be back, and he definitely will. We love when he joins us. The Web We Weave, Why We Must Reclaim the Internet from Moguls, Misanthropes, and Moral Panic comes out October 8th in hardcover. A bold defense of the Internet, arguing attempts to fix and regulate it are often misguided. Wow. Taylor Lorenz with the blurb on Jarvis's new book. And that is all I've got for you on today's show. Thank you, Jeff Jarvis. Thank you, John Carroll, for the music. As always, thank you for listening and supporting the show with your paid subscription. You can always pay more if you want, and that's all done at patreon.com. Standupwithpete.com as well. If you're ever having a problem downloading or finding today's episode, just go to standupwithpete.com. It will always live there because it automatically gets posted up there every day as well, just in case you didn't know. Okay, that's it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. And you can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.